My name is Ankit Jain and I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. This is part 3 of our integration interview preparation series where we will discuss the frequently asked questions based on the integration. Similarly, in the past, I have created another series based on the LWC too. So in case you have not visited that playlist, make sure that you are checking that out. I will also put the link in the description as well. Moreover, I also need your assistance, folks. Do let me know in the comment section which further interview preparation series that you are looking on this channel, and I will try to cover those in the future dates as well. So, before we get started, a quick connection related details. So, in case you folks like to connect with me, you can definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel and get the regular updates over about the videos that I post on my channel. Also, you can connect with me on the LinkedIn and join the Telegram channel too, where I will be putting all the updates related to the channel and where we can discuss your queries as well. So let's get started with the first question for today. How you can expose Apex class as a REST service. So in the last series, we discussed that Salesforce out of the box do provides the REST APIs and the SOAP APIs, but most of the times due to complex business requirement, we have to go and create our own APIs as well, right? And that is where we will be creating our Apex REST services. How to create the Apex REST service? Again, there are a few things that you have to keep in mind whenever you are doing it. First of all, your class must be annotated with @REST resource. And second one here is you are specifying the URL mapping after that. Moreover, the class that you are creating, that class must be global class. If the class is not global, then it cannot act as a REST service. So you have to make sure that your class must be global. Moreover, the method that you are creating must be global as well as the method must be static as well. In addition to that, in a class, you can define the different types of annotations as well, like @HTTP get, post, delete, put, as well as the patch annotation. One key consideration that you have to keep in mind whenever you are defining the annotation, you cannot use the same annotation twice for the two different methods. So one annotation can be used only once. So in case you try to do that, you will get a compile time error. So you should go and use the get annotation whenever you have to read or retrieve the Salesforce records. Right? Similarly, if you have to use the post annotation, you will be using the post annotation whenever you are creating the records in your method. In case you are performing the delete operation, then you will be using @HTTP delete. In case you are performing the upsert operation, then you will go for the @HTTP put, and for the update, you will go for the @HTTP patch. Right? Again, here you can go and add the parameters in the form of body for the post as well as the put and the patch method. So the get HTTP annotated methods and the delete HTTP annotated methods, they don't have any parameters. These are all different points that you can cover. Then the interview will also satisfy that, okay, you know how to create the Apex REST service. Okay, but the key pointers, classes and the methods must be global. Class must be annotated with @REST resource followed by the URL mapping. That URL mapping again must be unique. And the second one here is the methods can be annotated with get, post, delete, put, as well as the patch annotations. So like we have created the Apex REST service. So another question that can be asked in case the business are using the SOAP services, that how to expose the Apex class as a SOAP service here. Again, to define the Apex class as a SOAP service, here also you have to make sure that the class is global as well. Moreover, the methods that you are creating, that method must have the web service and the static definition. Okay, so that each method can be exposed. So two parameters in the method here, web service as well as the static. Again, if you are specifying the web service keyword, you don't have to explicitly go and specify the global keyword here, because the web service keyword itself provide the global access to the methods that if you are creating that. Moreover, here you can see that we have defined the get record method. Again, this method is a custom SOAP API call that you can definitely go and define as per your business requirement, which will return the record. Next thing, what you have to do here is after you have created your web service, you have to generate the WSDL file of that web service, and then you can share that WSDL file with the external application, so that the external application will consume that WSDL file and invoke your SOAP service. So the key pointers here is class must be global, method must be web service followed by the static, and after that download the WSDL file and share it with the external systems. Now the third question here will be how you can make HTTP callouts. As of now, we are allowing the other systems to make the call into the Salesforce, but most of the times we do make the callouts from the Salesforce into the external systems as well. I generally define that as a three-step process whenever we have to make any HTTP callout. Step number one, we should go and create the HTTP instance. Step number two, we should go and create the HTTP request. Again, here we have to enrich the HTTP request based on the documentation that we are connecting with, right? But there are few things that we have to specify, which is mandatory. First is the endpoint, to which endpoint we are connecting from the Salesforce, and the second one here is the set method as well. Again, set method, you can go and define the methods like the get, post, patch, put, as well as the delete here. Okay, there are few documentation which explicitly wants to set the headers. There are few documentation which explicitly wants to specify the content type. So based on that, you will be specifying all those different headers here. And in case you are dealing with the post method, patch method, or the put method, then you will also go and specify the body as well. Okay, once that part has been completed, the third step that you have to do here is we have to go and invoke the HTTP method by calling the send method here. So here we will be sending the request and capturing the response. Again, after capturing the response, we generally go and validate the response based on the response code. If the response code is in between the range of 200 to 299, we say that the response is good. Otherwise, we say that there is a error in the response. Again, one thing that I want you folks to comment in the section and comment in the YouTube description section that what is the prerequisite before we make the HTTP callouts. There is a one configuration step that we have to make sure we are doing, otherwise the HTTP callout will not be possible. So do let me know in the comment section what is that mandatory thing. Next question is how to test the HTTP callouts. Again, a very frequently asked question. The reason it is very frequently asked because by default Apex does not support HTTP callouts, or your test methods does not support the HTTP callout, right? So even though if you try to make the HTTP callouts from your Apex methods, basically it will fail. So in case you have to perform the testing of the HTTP callouts, then here you have to go and generate the mock responses. And to generate the mock responses, we will be using the method test.setMock method. This is a very important method that will be used to generate the mock responses. Again, in this method, we will be specifying the class which is implementing the interface, that is the either the call mockout interface or the static resource callout mock interface. Either one of these interface can be used to generate the mock response. In case you want to specify the response in the form of static resource file, then you can use the static resource, or in case you want to explicitly go and write down the response, right, then you can go and use the HTTP callout mock interface. So make sure that you are specifying these few keywords whenever you are answering the testing of the HTTP callouts. First one here is using the test.setMock method, and another one here is by implementing these two interfaces. Next question here is, I already covered that question in my LWC series 2, but I want to repeat this one more time because this is again related to the integrations as well. So how to invoke the API from the LWC. So to invoke the API from the LWC, here we do have one fetch method. Here we do have one fetch method. Again, in this fetch method, we will be passing the endpoint that we want to integrate. Again, in case that endpoints demand few additional parameters, for example, the methods and the headers, you can set all those parameters in the form of JSON. Next point here is your fetch method will always return the promise. So you have to, whenever you are answering this question, make sure that you are explicitly specifying this point, that your fetch methods always returns the promise. So it always runs under the asynchronous approach. So you have to handle the response, and after that you have to call the JSON method and then you will be handling the JSON output from the fetch. So there are two promises that you have to invoke here. One is the fetch promise, and second one here is the response.json promise. Again, there are few prerequisites that we have to take care whenever we are implementing the fetch method. Again, I'm expecting you folks to answer the both the prerequisites. Again, whenever we are making the callouts from the Apex, there is only one prerequisite, but whenever we are making the callouts using the fetch, there are two prerequisites that we have to take care. Again, I will post the answer for this in the next week, but I'm expecting you folks to answer me what all different two prerequisites that needs to be defined whenever you have to uh, make the call outs using the fetch API or from specifically from the LWC components. The next question here will, what is the difference between the outbound and the inbound integration? So outbound integration basically is something where Salesforce send the data to the external system. So assume that there are two systems, one is the Salesforce and second one here is the Oracle. So as soon as the order is created inside the Salesforce, you have to send that order details into the Oracle. Then whenever we are implementing that kind of an integration, it is referred as an outbound integration. So whenever this type of question has been asked, right, make sure that you are always covering the answers with the example so that interviewer will also get the confidence on that. Next one here is the inbound integration. In an inbound integration, basically the Salesforce receives the data from an external system. Now here the scenario will be, for example, Oracle wants to, again there are two systems, Salesforce and the Oracle, but this time Oracle wants to fetch the contact information from the Salesforce, right? Then here they will be making the inbound integration into the Salesforce. What all the different options to implement the outbound integrations and the inbound integration I have covered in detail in the part 1. So make sure that you folks check that out. Next one here is, what is the use of metadata API in the Salesforce? When you should go for the metadata API. The metadata API basically it allows to retrieve, deploy, create, update or delete the customizations. This time we are not dealing with the data. Again, I am repeating here. Here we are dealing with the customization. So whenever you have to perform the operations of retrieval, deployment, create, update, or delete the customizations, then you will go for the metadata API. The main purpose of the metadata API here is to move the metadata in between the Salesforce org during the deployment process. That is the main purpose here. Whenever we are moving up the metadata in between the Salesforce org, basically at background, metadata API works. Right? So use metadata API to deploy, retrieve, create, update, or delete customization and information. For example, right, like the custom object definitions or a page layout, if in case programmatically you want to make some changes, right, then you will go for the metadata API here. The key point that you should highlight whenever you're answering this question here is metadata API does not directly work with the business data. To work with the business data, we already have few other APIs like the SOAP API or the REST APIs, right? Again, metadata API is used whenever you have to manage the custom metadata like profiles, custom objects, settings, page layouts, and all those stuff. Then you will go for the metadata API. Another one here is the what is Composite API, right? Very frequently we do use this term even in the best practices. We already highlight that. We always highlight that we should, whenever possible, we should go for the Composite API in the Salesforce integration. So what is actually a Composite API? So Composite API is something basically which allows you to make multiple requests in a single call, right? In case you wants to make a multiple request into a single call, right? So that the number of round trips to the servers can be reduced. For example, let's say my business requirement here is I need to go and create an account, contact, as well as the opportunity, right? Rather than I go and send the three different requests to create the three different entities, I should go and create one composite API and send all the three details into the one single API call. The reason we are doing this because we want to make sure that we are not hitting the governor limits, and we are also reducing the number of round trips that we are making to the server. It is very much beneficial whenever we have to improve the performance and manage the complex transactions as well. Okay, so Composite API, it's a recommended practice from the Salesforce whenever we are integrating with the internal systems or external systems are integrating with the Salesforce as well. Now, this is a more practical question where they might ask you to write down the code here that how you can implement a retry mechanism. For example, let's say you are making a call out to the external system, but the external system is not responding, or let's say external system is busy and you are getting a timeout error. Then how automatically you will make sure that your call out will be retried at least 2 times or 3 times before considering that as a failure. So whenever you have that type of scenario based question, they generally expect you to write down the code, and that is where you should have the high level understanding how this code has been written. So let me give a quick overview about this. So what I have done here is I have defined the two variables at the top. First one here is the max attempt 3. So that make sure I'm making sure that I'm making maximum 3 retry attempts. After that, I'm creating one more variable where I am storing how many attempts that I have taken. Okay. So first I am making a call out here. Let's say I have put in my normal logic to call out, and in case the call out is successful, nothing is happening, then here I am breaking it from the loop. That means my job is done. But in case from the call out I am not getting the successful response, I am getting a failure, for example, timeout exception or any other XYZ extension that I am getting, then definitely my exception block will execute. Here I am increasing my current attempt variable. So the previous value was 0, and here I have incremented that by 1. After that, I am checking whether the current attempt is greater than the maximum attempt. That is 1 is greater than 3, sorry, 1 is less than 3. Answer is yes. Then I am waiting for the 5 second. Might be there my external system is already processing lots of requests, and I should hold for some seconds before I go and invoke it again. So here I am waiting for the 5 seconds. Here I am specifying the time into the milliseconds. So here I am waiting for the 5 seconds. After waiting for the 5 seconds, again I am repeating the same steps. So these steps will continue unless and until my current attempts and my maximum attempts are same or greater than 3. Right? Till that time, we will be repeating the same step again and again, and still we are not getting the positive output. Basically, we are manually throwing the exceptions here. Okay, so this is a typical way of writing down the retry mechanism into the Salesforce. Make sure that you guys are going over this deck. You can also try to implement in your dev org as well. The next question and the final question here will be, can you please define few of the best integration practices that we can implement in the project? Again, here the question is quite vast. You can answer a lot of stuff here, but I'm keeping it as a few pointers. Definitely, these are not the limited. You can add many more pointers to have the better integration practices. But first and foremost, make sure that you are having the secure communication. Basically, here you are integrating the two different systems. So make sure that you are taking care of both authentication as well as the authorization. Next one here is the recommendation from the Salesforce that for every integration that you are doing, you should use one user per integration. The reason being, you are only exposing the limited access required by that integration module, right? You are not exposing the complete system access here. And for that, we already discussed in the past, Salesforce have provided the integration users which only have the API access. Whenever possible, go for the data virtualization. So thumb rule here that many of the architects do apply. In case the data that you do have in the Salesforce, it is not the master record, or it is not the system of truth for the Salesforce. then we generally keep it outside and pull it on the demand basis, rather than we should go and copy the data from the external system into the Salesforce. It's always a good practice to have the data virtualization over the data duplication. Again, whenever possible, go for the platform event, because platform event do offer lots of flexibility over the outbound messages. But again, in case the external system do expect the data into the SOAP API form, then you have to go over the outbound message. But in case not, you can definitely use the platform event. And in case in your org they are using the ESB, right, then with the help of ESB you can always convert the JSON into the XML, right? So what you can do here is you can use the platform event whenever possible to send the notification, unless and until you do have the hardcore requirement, you don't have the ESBs, and then you have to go for the outbound messages. Always try to avoid the point to point integration. This is specifically true whenever you are working for the enterprise orgs where they do have lots of integration, because if you are creating the point to point integration down the line, it is very challenging to maintain the integration. Most of the time the scalability will also be compromised, and there's a possibility of having the security breach as well, right? So make sure that you always have the ESBs in place so that you can avoid point to point integration, and you can send the data to the ESB, and it's the job of the ESB to connect to the other systems. Whenever you have to perform the operations on the bulk record, always try to use the bulk APIs over the REST APIs or the SOAP API. We already discussed about what all the good practices to be followed for the bulk API and all in the second part of the video. So make sure that you also go over that as well. And in case you are looking for the better performance and you are performing the data related operations, then go for the REST APIs. However, if the security is the prime importance, this is majority of the time true for the financial institution, right? Stick to the SOAP API. So again, based on business to business requirement, you can always decide out of the lots of APIs that Salesforce do offer. That's all I do have, folks, for the integration series. I hope you found this series helpful. Again, I do wish you luck for your interview preparation, and do let me know once you got selected and in case you found this videos helpful too. Thank you. Have a good time.